Hey everybody, I hope you're having a good night. We're excited to join you and talk about Atlantic County. And I am looking forward to just telling you a little bit about my experience growing up in Atlantic County and also being able to visit a lot of the local shops, not only this weekend, but throughout my life. So I hope you're able to join on and post some questions on the side and we'll get started. So this weekend, we wanted to make sure that we went out and had a chance to visit Hamilton, and I absolutely love Hamilton. We're seeing such a kind of a rebirth there. So many new little shops and young people moving out there, including my neighbor's daughter who just moved back to Hamilton with her boyfriend, or fiance actually. And so for me to go out and check out the shops, starting with the toy market and walking around Main Street and down some of the side streets was really fun. And I loved being able to go into the toy market without my kids because I knew if I brought them on this visit, we would never make it out. So it was great to see some of our friends and supporters came out to join us, including Rosemary. If Rosemary's on, I wanted to give you a little shout out because you gave me those I voted stickers when I saw you this weekend, and they really came in handy today when I was able to cast my ballot over in Atlantic City. We decided to put out a kind of a request for anybody to join us as I cast my own ballot at a secure drop box in Atlantic City today, and there was a fantastic turnout. There were so many people who had just registered to vote for the very first time, so it was really nice to see some young people where it was their first vote, and also to be able to give them that I voted sticker that we're also familiar with. And it was simple, it was easy. I filled out my ballot in black ink. I made sure that I put it in the inner envelope. I didn't remove the flap. I filled out on the back of that inner envelope and made sure I signed it. And then I put it inside the other envelope, sealed it, took it over to Atlantic City and stuck it right in that drop box. And I hope that you all will do the same, knowing that it is an all vote by mail election. Even if you show up at the polls on the day of our typical election day, November 3rd, it's still a paper ballot. So get your ballot in now, make sure that it gets counted, mail it back if you need to. And if you know anyone who hasn't registered, today's it, this is the last day. So let's make sure we get them signed up online today and they'll still have a chance to participate. So back to my visit to Hamilton, it was really great. Of course, everybody knows kind of the classic places to go in Hamilton for good Italian food or to go pick up some groceries, things like going by Bagliani's that my neighbor Ann Louise and her family always stop by. They pick up all kinds of goodies for me and bring them back. If I get a chance, I always go in too. But the other places that we were able to see that I had never been before was stopping in there to Allies in Care and making sure that we heard about what was happening. I'd like to be able to go back to Hamilton on Thursday this week because it's the third Thursday, and I know they do a lot of events on Thursday evenings, so that may be a possibility. And I also had a chance to go to Mays Landing, where my uncle and aunt actually live and have lived my whole life in Mays Landing. My uncle's a small business owner from Mays Landing, owning a marina there. And, for me, going around Mays Landing has always been nice. But this time, we're starting to notice some of the shops and small businesses have closed up their doors, and we really need some reinvestment there. And that's what I heard from a lot of the people living in the area, and also got a chance to stop in at Earth Angels for Dementia and talk to them because, as you know, many of you know, a big focus of mine is on mental health. And what I really loved about the work that they're doing there is making sure that caregivers are taken care of as well, because we know It's not only helping those with a mental illness or brain disease, but it's also looking after the people who are taking care of all of us, and that their wellness is being looked after, because that can be very stressful and isolating, frankly. So the Earth Angels there have provided kind of a new service during the virus. If you have never heard of it, we stopped in and they told us how they really transitioned to address COVID and take care of law enforcement, first responders during this stressful time, frontline workers, and also help in the effort to distribute food. So that was part of a Hamilton Cares initiative that they're all working on there. And then, some of the places that have long been part of our tradition are stopping at Mazzio's, where our office is just located next door in Northfield. If you haven't been by the office, you can certainly stop in on Sundays, usually where you have volunteers who come by. Some of you who are on watching tonight are our very best volunteers who help with everything from phone banking to stuffing envelopes to making sure that we are getting our postcards in the mail. And that's been a fantastic effort that Jordan has run. If you're familiar with the staff, if you don't know Jordan, you can email her at jordan@amykennedyforcongress.com if you want to help with the postcard effort. Some of the other places that we like to stop are in Absecon, where I grew up. I always have gone to the Five and Dime there in Absecon. It's called Hometown Variety. Growing up, I waitressed at Raffici's in Absecon. And of course, I waitressed a few different places. I also bus tables and hostess, and I used to bus tables out at Renault Winery, and then hostess at Raffici's. I worked as a waitress there. I worked over in Atlantic City at Girasol as a waitress, and even here in Brigantine, where I live now, at Laguna Grill. And that was such a fun summer job, being kind of out on their deck at that time and being able to wait tables, but be right near the beach. So you felt like it was a little bit of outside. And of course, I always taught swim lessons in the summer too. So that was with Plymouth Landing Swim School for a decade. I taught swim lessons with Cindy, and really was a fun part of my own summer experience, but also built on, I swam in high school and I swam for the Absecon Stingrays growing up. So it was another transition from that. And then once I had my own kids, I took them to Cindy to have them take swim lessons again. And it was kind of a full circle thing for me. And when we go over to Atlantic City, some of the small businesses over there are redeveloping. So many of you may have seen in the press where they talked about the Orange Loop and how the development for that area is looking. My grandparents used to live on St. James Place, my great-grandparents, and they owned a bakery, Carolina pastry shop on South Carolina Avenue, and my great-grandparents on the other side had a photography shop on South Carolina Avenue also. So, a lot of kind of family history over in Atlantic City, and then in Pleasantville, where my grandfather owned an art studio, and he did kind of the commercial artwork, things that they would put in the yellow pages, and he was a great artist himself, and I've tried to take after him and do a little bit of artwork and watercolors. But what I'm hearing and seeing in our area is that some people are actually staying a little later into the season this year, and I'm glad to see that. I was talking to the stylist at the hairdressers yesterday, or I guess it was the day of the debate. I got my hair done, and I was talking to her about whether or not she was a little busier than usual, and she said it really was. Although they had been closed for a long time, they're seeing so much more traffic right now because people have stayed longer into the season, and she's hoping that that just tapers slowly into the holiday season, where they normally would pick up again. and that'll help get them through this time. But we know that we're going to need to see changes as it applies to restaurants that are just still going to need help to get through this, the casinos that are going to need help to get through this time because they're not operating at capacity. So some of the other things that we have talked about or looked at when it comes to mental health in our area, we've been able to talk about the Hope One van, and that's on site all around the county. If people need to get into treatment, they are around every day, and you can call, you can take a look online to see where they'll be located. And that's a really important service out of the sheriff's office that we appreciate. We also know that there's some small businesses that would like to start up, but they maybe need support coming in. So hopefully in that next package in the Build Back Better plan that might get rolled out, if Biden's successful, we'll see some support for minority-owned businesses and women-owned businesses, and I would love to see some of those investments happening here. I had an opportunity this past week also to visit with the Atlantic City Merchants Association, and one of their big concerns was safety and making sure that in the winter months that there's enough safety measures. So it was a meeting that combined some elected officials, it was the Merchants Association, it was the Atlantic City police chief and others, just talking about how to make some simple changes. And I loved seeing that engagement and people working together to find solutions. And I think that's the way that we really make change in our community that can benefit everybody. And it was things like, lighting, and how do we make sure that there's notices about what the rules are for the boardwalk and safety in that way as well. We know in the winter when the traffic on the boardwalk dies down a little bit, that sometimes crime can have an uptick, and we want to make sure that those businesses feel safe to operate and that people that are coming in, this tourism that's still there, will feel comfortable walking up and down the boardwalk and patroning the shops. And I know this week, for those of you who are still looking for some ways to shop but aren't ready to get back indoors, there is the last Brigantine Farmers Market happening this Saturday. That's going to be from 8 to noon, and I will definitely be there. We always go to the farmers market, and especially the last one because it's more of a fall seasonal farmers market, so that's a lot of fun. I want to take a look at some of the comments down the side and see if there's anything that I can address. Helen says, it was great fun to vote with Amy. It was. We had a really good turnout when we did the voting today, and some friends of mine had made from scratch at home, made some masks for supporters, and that was so nice to be able to have William, who's on watching tonight, and Jenny hand those out, and we really appreciate it, and they look great. Do they start counting ballots before November 3rd? Patricia, that's a great question. They do. So they're allowed to start counting 10 days before, but they can't release those numbers. And that's just so that there's not an extreme backlog. What you will see before then is that you can track that your ballot was received. So they'll scan the outer envelope can be removed. They can scan in that this ballot was received. That way, when people fill out those provisional ballots on the day of, those provisional ballots don't get counted on election day. So if you go to the voting booth the day of, those get counted later because those are provisional. They have to make sure that you didn't also send in a mail ballot so that each person only votes once. And that's one of the ways that they protect our voting system here in New Jersey. And but none of the totals will be released until election day, and then they'll start telling about the tallies for each area. Do you see any positives coming out of virtual learning, if any? Actually, our kids, just the pre-K to 2 to second grade, went back in person today. So my oldest is still home, learning from home, and really, I think, doing a very good job. One thing that I think might benefit some students is we know that school is not really tailored to the natural sleep habits of older kids, and they have to do that because of busing schedules and after school sports schedules and the way that it's set up. We know that's not really science-based what time school starts, so maybe they're benefiting from that now, where they might get an extra half hour or so of sleep, or even a little bit more. But my young kids were back in the classroom today. They had plexiglass around their desk, masks. They changed the setup for the cafeteria, the way they were spaced outdoors. Each class had a section of the outdoor space so that they were not close together. And they came back and they had a great day. So I'm hopeful that can continue. I know that they had the option of learning remotely, and some kids are doing that too. And for now, Harper will stay home because it's only from pre-K to second grade in the building. So that gave them an opportunity to really space out. Yeah, drop boxes. That's a great question. Where are the drop boxes? There's a map with drop boxes. Today I went to the one at the municipal building over in Atlantic City, but there is one right in Brigantine and in front of most municipal buildings. Let's see. Oh, I love that. Damaris says that their son will be voting for the first time this Saturday. That's really exciting. I can't think of any better election to get involved and make it your very first vote, because we know this one's such an important year. And I can only imagine how anxious your son is to get that vote in. Say there's an Amy visibility event. Yep. If anybody is interested, it's a lot of fun. Group of people come out and you can just show your support, and there's a lot of honking, and it'll be really a great time. Oh, hey, Megan. Thanks for logging in from Wisconsin. I hope to see you in November. Megan is my best friend from growing up and was there for me, not only in grade school, but all the way through, roommates through college with me. And her grandmom is still a big supporter in Absecon. So let's see what else we have. Oh, sure. So Justin asked about infrastructure, and one of the things that I did talk about in the debate, if you had a chance to watch the debate, that was Thursday this week. I didn't get a ton of questions. We answered some questions. I know that they gave Jeff Van Drew an opportunity to talk a little bit about his record. It's a 90-second kind of response, so that's tough to get everything in. But one of the things that I mentioned was the need for infrastructure when we talk about the economy. It's certainly not the only piece. We know supporting small businesses. We know access to microloans. We know it's, a whole variety of things, and investment in green energy will be important. Research in this area. Tomorrow's the groundbreaking for Stockton's second building, so that'll be an important part of our economy here in Atlantic County in particular. So I'm excited for that. But infrastructure is very important. And one of the things that I talked about was the Atlantic City Airport. And we know that the Atlantic City Airport's actually long enough to accommodate a space shuttle, which is really unbelievable, because for anybody who's ever flown out of Atlantic City Airport, it's tiny and it's accessible and it's easy, but it's one of the longest runways in the country. And so knowing that we have that, we could be doing more with it. However, because there's not an easy on-off ramp to the expressway and the parkway from that location, directly from the airport, those of you that have been through that, what used to be the circle there, know that it's still a little bit down the road to hop on. Without those things, it makes it challenging for it to be used as a distribution site. And that's something that, if a company, an Amazon or another group were to set up some type of distribution, they look for those infrastructure investments to know that it'll be easy and it makes sense for them to conduct business here. So we already have an opportunity zone around the airport that would make it enticing for manufacturing and distribution to be set up there. But we need to finish the job with infrastructure investments that make it a good idea and make sure that we have a workforce that's ready to go. Let me take a look at what else we have. Really like to talk. Let's see. How about just mentioning, for those of you that are waiting to see what's happening with stimulus, I think it's really important that we are pushing on Congress right now and encouraging them, letting them know that we need that stimulus passed, that we need to be able to negotiate that they continue to work to really see the urgency in getting those dollars passed, because for South Jersey, it's critically important. We know that the Community Food Bank of South Jersey has noted an increase in demand that's significant. It's nearly doubled what their normal demand has been in the past. And so the time is right now. The food insecurity is severe, and we're seeing high rates of unemployment. We know that it's up in one of the biggest swings of unemployment in the country has been in Atlanta County, in our area. And we really need to get that stimulus money in. For our economy to be able to come back, we're also going to need to have the research, diversity, green energy. But, it's as simple as making sure that we are keeping those small businesses afloat. So the Restaurant Act that was talked about, the stimulus, not only for individual checks, but for those restaurants to get the grant money that they're going to need to stay open and get through this time, will be really key. So I just wanted to mention that that's something that all of us can do. We can continue to keep pressure on our elected officials and make sure that they're sticking up for us and that they deliver the support that's really needed for this area. Okay. Leon says, if I voted by mail in the primary, but wanted to maybe vote in person due to the ongoing efforts to undermine that, how would I do it? One of the things you could do, Leon, is you could take your ballot that you receive in the mail to your polling place. That way you're not having to fill out a provisional ballot. So that they will be counting all of the vote by mail ballots first. And the provisional ballots get counted 8 days later. So you want to get your vote by mail ballot counted. So the recommendations I have would be to either, if you're concerned about the mail or even the secure drop box, you can take it directly to the Board of Elections. You can drop it off right there, or you can take it directly to your polling place on the day of. But the earlier you get it in, if you're able to do it to the Board of Elections, I would recommend that. I think the earlier the better. And you can track online that your vote was received, although there's typically a little bit of a delay, so a couple days as they process those. So don't be surprised if it takes a few days before it shows up in the system, knowing that there's a lot coming in each day and there may be a little bit of a backlog before they scan it. All right. Um, oh, great. Um, Talking about Amy, as someone who fought New Jersey Transit and won after their unjust closure of the Atlantic City line in 2018, a big issue for me is getting the line back to a schedule that benefits the majority of people. What would you do to make this a reality? I think, transportation is a huge issue in South Jersey because we need to have some federal dollars to invest in subsidies to make sure that we're able to have really reliable transportation here in South Jersey. We know that we have much less availability because we do have a smaller population, a more spread out population, that they just don't run as many lines, that we're not seeing the bus routes as frequently, and we need to have that for people to get to work, for people to be able to get home and travel around this area if they don't have a vehicle, if they do, to the grocery store. And without the subsidies for those programs, I think we're going to continue to struggle. So I think it's demanding the federal dollars here, knowing that this is part of the bigger project, that if you have a commitment in New Jersey, that it's all of New Jersey. It's not just North Jersey, and fighting to make sure that South Jersey gets their equal share down here will be key. Usually Tony's asking if the election counts are released in stages or only a final count. Usually we start to get results in as polls close. So I would expect that to happen as well, that we'll start to get the numbers rolling in on election day, that we may hear sometime. By the time polls close, they'll have told us what they've counted thus far, and knowing that some more ballots will come in the following days. And we'll just have to do a really strong job of tracking how many people have voted this year compared to a typical year. So we're really hoping for a strong turnout, and I expect that to be the case. We know that with the vote by mail process, that in the primary, it was the highest ever turnout, and that's really encouraging. I wanted to just thank everybody who's tuned in for various small business tour conversations that we've had. Many have been, unique to the counties that we've traveled to. We've had a chance to talk with small business owners throughout. One thing was the same, that everybody wants to get back to work. Everybody wants to be able to, go about their business, and really not looking for any kind of handout. They just want to be able to serve the community that they love. And, they've done so much at adjusting and pivoting to this time, and have been really impressive in the way that they've handled that. I saw some businesses who have been able to be very successful, others who are still having a difficult time, depending on what service they're in, knowing that, some of the bigger banquet halls, or whether it's, florists, whatever it might be, that have really struggled, and of course the restaurants. And so this was the final weekend of our small business tour. We did get a chance also to go to some farms throughout the tours in different counties, including in our own, and we did some pumpkin picking with the kids and had a great time. They loved it. So maybe we'll post a couple pictures from that visit as well. And, that's as much a part of this. So it's small businesses, but small family-owned farms as well, that we want to support going forward and make sure that they're there for years to come, because I love South Jersey, but, Atlantic County is my home. I've always lived in Atlantic County, and I want to see it do as well as it can. And I know that's going to take a lot of new investment, particularly here, to make sure that the whole of South Jersey really brings in the kind of new business, new investment that we're going to need during this difficult time. So thanks again. Thanks for logging in, and please make sure you get your ballot in early. Take that vote by mail ballot and return it whatever way you feel most comfortable. My parents put theirs in the mail the day they got it. They mailed theirs back. I used the secure drop box in Atlantic City. Patrick voted today and used the secure drop box in Brigantine, and he took Marshall with him in the bike, and he had Marshall in the back bike seat. And I know, dropping it off at Board of Elections is an option too, but just make sure you do it. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.